So now that we've discussed prefixes in a little bit of detail, I want us to move on to a discussion of suffixes. And if you remember earlier in the lesson, I said that suffixes change the part of speech to the words that they are added to. Now, let's look at how they do this in a little bit more detail. The first suffix I want to look at is used to make a word plural. For example, the difference between a match and matches, or an advantage and advantages. This suffix, the s or the es ending, I know you've already seen a lot of. So we also use suffixes to create the tenses of verbs, like in the examples watched or going. Here, watched with the ed ending is in the past tense, whereas going with the ing suffix is in the continuous. It forms the present participle. We also use suffixes to make the comparative and the superlative forms of many words. For example, highest, the highest, and slower, slower, like in the sentence, he is walking slower than I am. And finally, we can use it to form nouns from verbs. Like in the examples you should see on your screen right now, appear can become appearance, and allow, allowance, utter, and utterance, and accept, acceptance. The ance, or the ence, suffix is used to make a noun from a verb, as is the ence suffix, ence, like in the words inference, from infer, persistence, from persist, existence, from exist, and difference, from differ. Now, these aren't the only suffixes we have that can be used to make nouns from verbs. We also have the ment ending, M-E-N-T. And we use it in words like management, from to manage, or enjoyment, from enjoy, as well as acknowledgement, from acknowledge, and entertainment, from the root word entertain. Now, we also have the ER ending. For example, write becomes writer, or an author, as you may also know them. Drive becomes driver, someone who drives. Work becomes a worker, and speak becomes speaker. And finally, we have the tion, or the chun ending. This is used to form words like pollution, from the root verb pollute, or protection, from the root verb to protect, as well as impression, from the root verb to impress, and negotiation, from the root verb to negotiate. Now, just like we use suffixes to form nouns from verbs, we can also use it to form nouns from adjectives, like so. One of the endings we can use for this is the ity, or the ity ending, used in the words activity, from the root adjective active, as well as words like reality, from real, eccentricity, from eccentric, and diversity, from the root adjective diverse. We also have the ness ending, N-E-S-S. For example, politeness, from the root word polite, rudeness, from rude, tenderness, from tender, brightness, from bright, and happiness, from the root adjective happy. We also have the ry ending we can use to discuss these. For example, rivalry, from rival, or bravery, from brave, or even pleasantry, from pleasant. We have 3 more endings that we can use to make nouns from adjectives. So if it seems like a lot, don't worry. We have the hood ending, H-O-O-D, that we use with words like false to make falsehood or a lie. We have likely, which turns to likelihood, which talks about the chance of something happening. And lively turns into livelihood. And the last two that we'll discuss are the ility or the ity ending. And here, we've already mentioned ity once, but it's used with a few different spelling combinations, so it's best to mention it here as well. For example, reliable becomes reliability, equal becomes equality, peculiar becomes peculiarity, and special becomes specialty. Now, just like this whole time we've been forming nouns from verbs and adjectives, we can also form verbs from nouns using some endings. So let's look at a few ways to do this. One is the ify or the ify ending. For example, class turns to classify or to sort into a group or a kind. Beauty turns into beautify. The word colony, however, you cannot use with ify. Instead, you must use the ise or the ize ending, which primarily depends on whether you're reading British or American English. For example, colony then will become colonize to make the verb. Glamour, glamorize. Critic, criticize. And advert becomes advertise. But be careful with the pronunciation if you are making verbs from nouns. The pronunciation, instead of being softer towards the end, will be harder, with an emphasis on harder vowel sounds. For example, classify and colonize, here with the hard I sound rather than a softer sound. Now, let's move on to some ways that we can do something else. Let's make some adverbs from adjectives. Now, I promise you've already known how to do this for a long time, but let's just look at some examples just so you know that we're on the same page. The word extreme, for example, as an adjective, becomes extremely. Polite becomes politely, and recent becomes recently. The ly ending. You should have already learned this a long time ago when you learned to make adverbs. We're just reviewing it here. There are a great deal of other prefixes and suffixes in the English language, and in fact, there are too many for us to go over right now. This is a set, though, that should get you started, and these are some of the most common that you will encounter. So now, let's talk about one more little thing about English, and that's how we combine words, or make compound or blend words. Some examples of compound words or blend words in English are the following. Motel. It's a combination of motor, like a car has, and hotel. Also, the word homesick. The combination of home and sick. You want to go home. Handmade. Combination of hand and made, or to make by hand, or was made by hand. Undergo. A combination of the words under and go. Notebook, a combination of the words note and book. Shoplifting, from shop and lifting, in this case not lifting to pick up, but lifting to steal. Next, tablespoon, a combination of table, like you eat at, and spoon. Ladybird, lady, like female and bird, and oatmeal, oat and meal. Now, that's about all that I want to mention today about word formation in English. Now, be sure to memorize the useful vocabulary as well as review all of these rules a few times. This is one of the most powerful tools that you have in English, because in the event that you don't know a word, and there will be times that you don't know words, these are the ways that you can create it, or you can take a very good guess at what the word should be. And this will help you greatly on any written exams or spoken exams, or even to make you feel more comfortable speaking with a native speaker. So review all of the rules and review all of the prefixes and suffixes that we have discussed today.